Public Building Authority meeting. Today's day, May 26th, 9 o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Jamie sent out a agenda here in the last 15 minutes. So check your emails if you have not received that. Should be in your email, but it's a pretty simple agenda, and we can probably get through it pretty quickly. The first item we need to cover is a legal opening that Bobby's going to read for us and kind of give us an idea. As you remember, we are subject to open meeting laws, so it's kind of tricky with electronic meetings we're having. So I'm going to let Bobby take over. And one reminder, if you are on the phone or on your computer, if you can mute your microphone unless you're talking, it'll help the meeting go smoother. Thank you. Bobby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item of business, we have to recognize that if there's no objection from the members, I submit for the minutes, the Public Building Authority has determined that the meeting is being held electronically to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The chairman will call roll call. When he does, please acknowledge your name and that you can hear the other members. All votes will be taken by roll call. When the chairman calls your name, you express your votes. Please remember that prior to making a motion or a second or asking any questions or comments, please state your name before making the comment or motion. Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got. If you'll call roll call.
Thank you, Bobby. I will call the roll of the PBA members. When you hear your name, if you'll just say aye or present. Remember too to check your microphone. Sometimes we forget to turn it on and off, so just make sure your microphone's on. So I'll go down the list. We need 4 members for a quorum. First member is Glenn Adams.
This is Glenn Adams. I am present and I am hearing okay.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Next member is Eric Byra.
I'm present and I can hear the video, see the video and hear the audio fine.
Thank you, Eric. Mr. Carbine is not able to join us today. Joey Abney. Joey, are you with us? All right, I'm not hearing Joey. Next member is Ron Crutcher. Mr. Crutcher. All right, don't hear Mr. Crutcher on the line. Next member is Stacy Downs.
Hi, I'm Stacy Downs. I'm here.
Thank you, Stacy. And then myself here, so we do have a quorum with 4 people. So we will go on with the agenda items. The first item we need to discuss is the owner's rep process. And Mayor Anderson is going to discuss that for us.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend. I'm sure everybody's just dying to get back to more conference calls that we're doing in our county and our business world. So I will address the need for us, Mr. Chairman, to get this owner's rep process out of the way. Prior, I think Leslie's on here. I think I see her on there.
I'm here.
Thank you, Leslie. Would you Mr. Chairman, if you would allow me to direct traffic from this end, I'm going to go to Leslie first and kind of ask her to give us the details on sending this out, that it was sent out so that we all are on the same page again, so that we can have this discussion on the owner's rep process. Leslie, would you kind of tell us how many we got in and where we left it the last time?
Yes, sir. I mean, well, what we ended up doing was it was voted to interview the top 3. We had that scheduled for, I believe, the March meeting, And obviously, due to COVID-19, that didn't happen. So we have, any interviews for the owner's rep have not been conducted at this point.
Thank you, Leslie. So, Bobby, you're on here from a legal perspective. We're already behind, and I need for your opinion on us moving forward and getting this owner's rep off the table. We have, all of the members voted they wanted to do it at that time in person, of course, and we're probably 30, 45 days away that we can all get back in a meeting that's safely done. And we really just can't wait. What's our procedures, Bobby, as far as does the PBA need to rescind their order or their request to do an interview? And can we start doing some of this a little quicker than what we are? We're just getting behind. Bobby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is no legal requirement that you hold interviews, obviously. I believe you've all been provided the responses. We would need a motion to override the previous action. The motion would be a motion not to hold the interviews. Once that is done, then we could discuss the pros and cons, and then if everybody's ready, we could actually take a motion and vote on an owner's rep.
Thank you, Bobby. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a plea to you and to all of the members on this committee that we reconsider your actions to do interviewing and have that motion rescinded. And then from there, we can go on, and if you all vote in the affirmative of that, then we can go on with the discussion of the owner's rep process that we're at. As you will hear and report a little later in this agenda this morning from Gresham Smith, in some of their, we just, I can't emphasize, we need to push this on down the road and not be hung up in this the way we've been in the last 60 to 90 days. So my plea to you, Mr. Chairman, is to get a motion up on the floor to reconsider, or I guess the better way to do it is to rescind or not do interviews. That would be the first motion if I heard from Bobby, if that's correct. And Bobby, you want to put that in a legal, a worded term that is very comfortable?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the motion is to rescind the previous action taken on, and I don't have the last meeting date in front of me.
February 25th.
Okay, it's a motion to rescind the previous action that was conducted on May 25th. That was to hold interviews. Is there a motion?
This is Brown. I will make that motion, and I want to correct it. It's February 25th, and I make that motion. I'll need a second so that we can discuss this motion.
This is Eric Bayer, the PBA, and I'll make a second to that motion.
Great. We have a motion and a second. So I will open the floor for discussion. And once again, if you would like to discuss or speak, please state your name prior so we know who's talking. I'll open the floor for discussion.
Brown, this is Eric Bayer of the PBA. I would like to say on February 25th, we did feel comfortable with any of the top three being successful owners reps for us. They ranked out of all six. We did want to move forward with an additional step in an in-person interview just to clarify a couple things. But I believe in light of today's situation, any of those three, and specifically how they were ranked, we would be well served to move forward with choosing an owner's representative today.
This is Stacy Downs with the PBA, and I agree with Eric. I think that they're all great candidates, and who would have thought after that last meeting that we wouldn't see each other again for however long. So I do agree that they're all great candidates. So we can't go wrong. They'll all be good for the community.
Anyone else like to speak?
I guess I'm the only one left. This is Glenn Adams, and I'm sorry for the gap we've had in here that's caused this. I do know there was one member in particular that definitely wanted to have the interview, but under the circumstances, I guess it's just not going to be possible.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Also, too, I will add my 2 cents. Is I think we're all on the same page. It's a situation we have to get through, and we need to get on with this. Not being able to meet face to face. Not sure any presentations would be very beneficial. So I agree with the consensus of the board. And I will call for a vote. We are, once again, to remind you, we are rescinding our motion from the February 25th to hold interviews. So all in favor, I'm going to do a roll call. And if you will say yay or nay on that motion. First is Mr. Glenn Adams.
Glenn Adams says yay.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Eric Bauer.
Yes, this is Eric Bear, and I also say yay.
Hey, Brown, your lips are moving, but your voice is not heard. Try it again.
Sorry about that. So we got through Eric and last Stacy Downs.
This is Stacy Downs, and I say yay.
Great, thank you. All right, so that motion, and I vote yay as well. So that motion passes. Thank you. We will next need a motion to award the contract to a firm, owner's rep for the juvenile jail, ALC, and sheriff center. This was, we originally voted on the evaluation form, and I think I have the numbers right. Bobby, do I need to read off these numbers that we did last time, or are we just going to take a vote?
Mr. Chairman, I would advise that you read off the numbers again for the minutes.
Great, thank you. The numbers I have, and Jamie, you need to verify these for me, but we had three firms that were the top 3 firms. CGL had a vote of 82 points. Compass had a vote of 85 points, and Oversight had a total point of 87 points. And with those, Oversight had the highest total. And with that, I move that we award the contract to be owner's rep for the juvenile jail, ALC, and sheriff department to Oversight.
This is Eric Bear with the PBA. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Eric. Any discussion, questions, or comments on that motion?
Again, having done the due diligence and gone through the full review of each of these and allowing each of the PBA members to score this, I think we're going to be well served by any of these selections, and certainly this selection.
Thank you, Eric. Any other questions or comments prior to calling for the vote?
Mr. Chairman, this is Rogers Anderson. I'm not on the committee, so if you tell me to pipe down, I'll pipe down. But I do want you to understand how pleased I am with oversight on their current contract they are doing with the Animal Center. I am extremely, as you will see a little bit later in some verbiage that we're actually, that Jim Cross with oversight has been doing, working with the city of Franklin, has just done a phenomenal job during this period of time. I have nothing against the other two firms at all. This is the advantage of, I guess, of a COVID issue and a problem, and seeing Jim's real leadership in dealing with Franklin and keeping this thing on task and on job for us. I would be very comfortable. In fact, Jim has already been working, helping, answering a few questions for Steve Johnson. And I think this is the right move. The county can continue working with Jim. We're pleased with him, and I would concur with your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, I will go ahead and call roll vote on this motion. Glenn Adams.
Glenn Adams, and I vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Eric Bear.
Yes, this is Eric Bear. I also vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Eric. Stacy Downs.
Hi, this is Stacy Downs, and I'm in favor of the motion as well.
Thank you, Stacy. And I vote as well. So that motion passes. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, it's not a business question. I just want to acknowledge the orange earrings that are on Stacy. I know that there's so many of you big orange fans, particularly Bobby, who is not on here. They're so black and white, but there is hope at the end of this COVID period. The football will be played again, and the stadiums will be all filled to the size of Vanderbilt stadiums as they enter back into it. I just wanted, you don't have to put that in the minutes there, Jamie.
I hate to break your heart, but this is more of like a War Eagle burnt orange than a UT orange. So.
Well, you didn't break my heart. I was just glad to see it's got orange.
Okay.
All right, we will move on to the next item. Item number 4 is the oversight update. Oversight had a conflict, and I'm not sure anybody with oversight is on with us.
No, Brown, this is Jim. This is Jim. I'm here.
All right, great, Jim. Thank you. I thought you had a conflict. Jim sent out a letter earlier this morning from Friday with the update. But Jim, if you want to, I'll turn it over to you and let you give the update.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for trusting us to move on to the next project. We're extremely excited about that. We really enjoy our relationship with the county, and we worked hard to develop that relationship, and we look forward to continuing to work together. So I say thank you for that. We were preparing Friday to send out a pretty lengthy update to the PBA prior to us learning that we were actually going to have a meeting today. So we would have had more information for you if we had some time to prepare some more building plans, renderings, and some other things. But we will certainly have that next meeting that we can get to you. As we've all said earlier, it's been since February since we met. A lot's happened since February. So I'll try to, in the next few minutes, to walk you through kind of a little bit of a detail, kind of in the weeds about what's happened over the last 3 months or so before this virus turned our lives upside down. First of all, let me say that 906 and the entire design team, when this all happened, they made the shift to work at home, shelter in place, virtual meetings. They shifted to that rapidly. made it pretty seamless for us to be able to continue the design process. And so my thanks to Mike Hathaway. He's on the call today as well. So at the end of what I have to say, if you have any questions, feel free to ask either of us any of the questions. Let me touch a little bit on the schedule real quick. We're behind our original schedule. Originally, we had started grading on our offsite, meaning the access road coming into the building, the middle of May. Back when this virus hit, Rogers and Nina asked us to go back and let's verify our budget and be sure we know where we are. Let's find some areas of opportunities to where we can cut some dollars. Let's find some VE items that we could come up with. And that caused us a little bit of a delay where we had to put our pencils down for a few days. But then we got through that and then we started back. And then we determined that instead of bidding the offsite separately and the building separately, we would bid both of these at the same time, hoping to pick up some economy of scale by doing that. All that said, our construction documents are going to be submitted to the city for a permit on June 3rd. It's going to go out to bid shortly after that. Take about 3 weeks to bid the project. Take us about a week to review the bids. And then about on the 1st of July, we should have the final budget, final cost for the project. So what we've been doing the last 3 months, we have gone through and we've done 2 page turns of the construction documents, one at 50%, one at 95%. Andrea and her team have been involved in each of those, given us some good input about things that they're looking for, things that might have been missed that we needed to catch. That's what those 50%, 90% page turns are for. And just one more chance for Andrea and her team to be sure that everything is like they want it to be and we can make changes still at that point. We've also met with the county's furniture provider, which is Nashville Office Interiors. We have done that for a couple of reasons. One is to just for Andrea and her team to be able to see what selections are out there, put some criteria around what she's looking for, and then also to verify our budget that we're carrying to be sure that we have a sufficient amount of dollars there. So we've done that. We've had several interior design meetings with Andrea in 906, talk about colors and finishes in the building. I think that's gone well. We've got some good direction from Andrea and her team there. We have also met with Perry Parrott and his IT department to make sure that we have the IT closet like they want it. We have the data drops where they need to be. We've got the wireless access points where they need to be. We've also confirmed budgets with him as well to be sure that we are carrying enough money there for all the equipment that's needed for those items. And then we've also met with the sound and audio visual guys to be sure that we have all that covered, and also to verify our budget. So all of those items have been done now, and they are incorporated into our construction documents, and they will be bid when they go out. And we, in some cases, we had more budget than we needed, and in other cases, we were a little bit shy, so we've adjusted our budget. Overall, it didn't change the total, but we've just shifted some dollars around from line items with that. I've already touched on schedule. Let me talk about the city. Been numerous meetings with the city over the past 3 months. I guess when we probably were together last, we just got to go back and tell you where we started and where we ended up. That might be easiest for everybody. We designed our sewer to serve this property as the city asked us to design it. It was to put a pump lift station in for the animal center building. We were going to run a sewer line up into the property to access the rest of the property, and we thought we were good to go. We had all that budgeted. At the last minute, after that design was complete, the city came in and then said, we don't want you to do that anymore. We want you to run this sewer line under the bypass and to the West Haven lift station. About $1.5 million worth of sewer that we were going to have to run. And so I was pretty upset with the city that they came back to us in a meeting. Actually, Rogers was in with no warning, no issue, no anything about we're going to change this on you. And so I went back to the city and said, look, you can't treat the county as you would a private developer. If I'm a private developer, I have the ability to make a business decision. I can do this development and I'm going to make enough return on my investment to cover the cost to do this. And I can make a decision to either do it or not do it. County doesn't have that option. The only option the county has is they have to raise taxes. And they don't have lots they're going to sell, or they don't have houses they're going to sell. They don't have anything to recoup that cost. So you need to look at this differently than you would a private developer. Well, after a little while, the light bulb finally went off, and they came back and said they would cover the cost. This is subject to approval tonight at the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. But they did vote at a work session earlier in the month unanimously to go ahead with it. So I think tonight they're going to vote to do that. The city is going to pay to run the sewer to the West Haven lift station with a contribution of $500,000 from the county, which is the cost of what the county would have spent to run sewer that we had in the budget to begin with. So ultimately, it's not costing us any additional money. We're spending what we had in the budget to do that. Pretty dramatic turn of events with the city that I wasn't expecting, but I think they finally understood that this was not the same as a private developer and they needed to treat us differently. So that was a positive that we finally worked through and worked out with the city. We still are discussing our water line access to the site. We're carrying in our budget what they want us to do, but what they're wanting us to do is far and above what I think we should do. We have an alternate design that we've proposed to the city. They're considering it right now. Hopefully we'll have some resolution to that. I talked to Vernon on Thursday about that, and so he's still working through that issue with us right now. So hopefully this week we may have some resolution to our water line access. The third item we've been working through the city is Old Charlotte Pike. Current situation is that Old Charlotte Pike, the right-of-way of Old Charlotte Pike, would be dedicated to Franklin Christian Academy. The only people that have access to this Old Charlotte Pike at this point would be Franklin Christian Academy, Joe Mel's, and us. Franklin Christian Academy has agreed to accept the right-of-way and to maintain this as an access road that we would have access to and Joe Mel's would have access to. And Rogers has agreed to that, subject to Bobby having the ability to review that access agreement to be sure that there's nothing in there that would limit our access or cause us any issues. Rogers and I have been scratching our head thinking, why would Franklin Christian Academy want to do that? Well, Franklin Christian Academy is in the process of a campus expansion, and the city is requiring them as part of that expansion to upgrade Old Charlotte Pike, and they don't have the money, nor do they want to spend the money to do that. Old Charlotte Pike, as you recall, is going to dead end a cul-de-sac at McHatcher bypass, so really there is no through access. So the reasoning behind why they would want to do that is they want to save that money and maintain that. So subject to us reviewing the access agreement, I believe that's how that is going to ultimately be resolved. That is a pretty quick update about what we've been doing the last 3 months. There's a whole lot that's gone into that. It sounds like it's not much, but we've I think with our design team and everybody working together through these difficult times, they've done a really good job. We've just kind of quarterbacked this with them to keep this on track and on schedule. And we are not on schedule. I shouldn't say on schedule, but we are we are literally days apart from that. And we will, once this project is bid, we will go back, rework our schedule, and try to get the completion date back to the original date, which was August of 2021. Not guaranteeing we can do that, but that's what we're hoping to do once we get this project bid. So that's my update, Brown. If anybody has any questions, like I said, Mike Hathaway is also on the line. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Jim. Want to open it up to first to board members. If any board members have any questions or comments for Jim or oversight, and then Andrea, if you have any additional insights or questions or comments you'd like to add as well.
Hey, Jim, this is Eric Bear with the PBA. Thanks for the update and then the note you sent out and all the hard work. One question, has any of the work around Matt Catcher, I know we're not tying into that necessarily, but the work that's been going on there, any delays, had any impact or effect, or do you foresee that just because of the proximity having any challenges for this project?
You talking about work that's being done on the bypass?
Correct.
No, I don't. We've had several meetings with the designer, that's Gresham Smith, and with the contractor of the bypass. For a couple of things, we needed to coordinate our fiber optic drop into our site, which we've done. That was another kind of something we found at the last minute that's being run that we can just tap into. So that was a significant savings for the IT side. And when the city started asking for us to run this to this sewer to West Haven pump station, we immediately contacted Gresham Smith and the contractor to see if we could get a sleeve put under the bypass instead of having to bore it. And we were about a week too late being able to get the sleeve put in. So that's now going to have to be bored. But I don't anticipate anything going on with the bypass that would slow us down at this point.
All right, super. Thank you.
Hey guys, I have to jump off because I have another meeting, but I've been very pleased. I mean, Jim and Mike and their teams have kind of kept this thing rolling along. We've done a lot of virtual meetings, and it's worked really well. Luckily, there are some people out there who know technology better than me, so I didn't have to set any of it up. But yeah, I think we've kind of kept it moving, and you know, the fact that we're a couple months behind at this point is pretty understandable given the circumstances. So roll on.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Not hearing anything. We thank you.
Hey, Brown.
Yes.
Brown, one other thing I didn't touch on, and I don't know if Nina's on the call, but I know Rogers is, and if they wanted to, I didn't talk anything about the budget process, Roger. You want to say anything about that?
Jim, Nina is not. She's actually on vacation this week. If you just want to give a snapshot so we get it into the minutes and keep Brown abreast, that'd be all right.
Okay. So back when I mentioned when the virus hit, they asked us to go back and verify the budget. So we did do that, and we came up with a list of VE items, gave Nina and Rogers kind of here's what it's going to cost to do the entire project. If we get the VE items in here, here's what the cost is going to be. So option 1, option 2. And at the end of the day, Rogers and Nina decided to take to the budget committee the full amount we needed to do the project as designed. We still have the VE items that we can go back to if we need them. It's kind of a menu item of things that we can pick from big items to small items. But so subject to the commission voting for this budget in July, I believe it is, Rogers, then that would be the only thing that would cause us to potentially not get started sometime in July or early August. Fair statement, Rogers?
That's correct.
Okay. So I just wanted everybody to understand that process as well.
Great, thank you, Jim. Mr. Crutcher, do I see you on here?
Yes.
Great, thank you, Mr. Crutcher. All right, we will move on. No other questions or comments for Jim. We will move on to item number 5 on our agenda. And Steve Johnson is going to give us a general update from Gresham Smith.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Morning, Steve, we can.
Okay, good. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will give you an update on the master plan effort. We have, and I'll go through this fairly quickly, and we can double back to any questions because it covers a lot of material, but we were working, and we have been working on the last piece of our master plan, which was the operating budgets of each of the components, the courts, the juvenile services, the adult jail, and the sheriff's operation. We have met once or twice with each stakeholder and reviewed the operating budget and picked up their comments, and we are in the process of finalizing those operating budgets. In conjunction with that, some of the operating conversations in turn revised the functional diagrams, which was how the process should work. So we have also in parallel been doing final tweaks on the functional and site diagrams of each of the 4 components. And we are almost at conclusion with that effort. Then the very, very last piece is the compilation of an implementation plan that is 2 documents or 2 thoughts. One is a timeline of how all of these pieces interconnect in terms of design and construction and relocations. So we are working on creating that, and correspondingly an annual capital budget that goes along with the timeline. That is in version 2. It's a pretty complicated set of interconnected pieces, so we are working on that. So those are the tasks that we've been focused on. Then the next steps for us to complete is to get the final sign-offs on the operating budgets. Like I said, we're very close to that. And then we will generate a presentation to the steering committee and the PBA, and we'll figure out the details of how to do that. I don't have a date for that yet, but that's coming up within the next few weeks. We believe we will be prepared to present that final presentation like what you've seen before, that includes the operating budgets and the timeline and implementation plan. Then at the final delivery of the published master plan, we are trying to get that completed by the end of June. I would like to say a comment about the schedule. Obviously, the COVID-19 impacted this process also. We have lost probably approximately a month, but after the initial wave hit of confusion and what it meant for everybody to work in a different mode, we then picked up good momentum, and I would like to extend my personal thanks to all of the stakeholders who had their own very interesting issues to deal with. As you can all imagine, the judicial system dealing with this had a lot of new things to figure out. But very quickly, they began to respond to us after a few weeks, and we appreciate that. And they've been very responsive then as we issued these operating budgets and worked our way through that. So we are trying, we hope in the next, maybe a special called meeting, Mr. Chairman, or maybe it will be the next PBA meeting. I think we've got a little work to do to determine the exact timing, but we will have a presentation that covers our last component of the work. And then when we get that final round of input from everyone, we will then issue the final master plan report, which will obviously be a lengthy document that will have an executive summary that hits the high points and the key recommendations and the implementation strategy. And then it will have all of the documentation of the work that goes behind that. So that's a pretty quick cruise through what we've been doing. Any questions? Anything I didn't make clear?
Steve, this is Glenn Adams. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, Mr. Adams.
Okay. If we're going to have to continue to meet like this, and this might be a given, but if we're going to have to see your upcoming reports and all that, or do it this way, and again, this may be a given, but would it be possible to somehow get that out to us before we actually meet to talk about it?
Yes, sir.
So
I
that
think
we
that
might
is
have.
I think that's entirely appropriate request, and we will definitely need to do that.
It's just, I just think it might make it easier. It would for me anyway, to be able to look at it before you actually, discussed it. Just have an idea. Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you.
We will definitely do that. Good suggestion.
Okay.
That's certainly called for
Thank you.
now.
This is Brown. My question is for Mayor Anderson and maybe Bobby. Can y'all give us an idea on how the county is going to handle in-person meetings in the next 30, 60, 90 days? I know that's still up in the air, but what thoughts you have on that?
Bobby, you want to talk about the executive order and the time frame on that? Hey, Bobby.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Right now, the latest executive order, yes, sir. The latest executive order is concerning the electronic meetings expires on June 30th. After that, we will not be permitted to meet like this unless the governor extends that executive order. We don't believe he will. It obviously depends on whether there's another spike in cases. But at this time, it'll be June 30th will be the expiration of the order. And after that, the meetings will be held as they were before this pandemic.
And thank you, Bobby. And Brown, if I might touch on, it is from a political side, it's good and bad. But these large documents that Steve's talking about are very, very difficult to do on electronic. But I am appreciative of the avenue of the electronic meeting, so we can at least keep something going during this period of time. For us over on the government side and Bobby and the legal side, we have to give notice, and there are a little bit variation of how we do business. It's just like the roll call you were doing earlier in the meeting. We've got a county commission meeting coming up 2 weeks from yesterday, and we're 30 some odd resolutions. Each individual has to be roll called out by each name 24 times. It could last into breakfast time when we start at 7. So it's not our intent to push the governor or ask the governor Brown in any way to extend this. It's time for us to get back to having real meetings. However, I will tell all of the members that even when the electronic order that is being allowed, that we're still going to have to practice social distancing. As far as we can tell, temperatures will need to be taken, et cetera, to keep everyone safe. I'm one of the older members there, and I can assure you that that is something that safety is utmost, but getting our county back on business is critical too.
Great, thank you for that. And that kind of leads me into the next question. We're scheduled for another electronic meeting on June 23rd. And what I'm hearing from Steve, from Mr. Johnson, that they would be wrapping up a lot of that prior to June 23rd. So are we thinking, I want to get direction from you and Bobby, Mr. Mayor. Do we need to go ahead and schedule a June 23rd meeting and plan on that electronically, or should we wait another week and try to fit it in?
I think if Brown, if you would allow me the flexibility in working with you and Bobby, let's get another week, 10 days under our belt. I understand I don't want to delay this process. But to go from June 21st or June, whenever your next meeting is, June 22nd, I guess, over into July, there's a couple of weeks. That may be better, like the Glenn said, to get that document out and have that interface. You just can't do it as conveniently. I'm appreciative of this, but at the same time, it's very awkward to be turning pages up on a screen. So let's get a week. We're actually this week at the administrative complex. We're back to 4 days of work, appointments only. That's up one day. I plan to go to 5 days next week, appointment only, and then ease ourselves back into this because what we're facing over here is that if contamination should occur in any one of our departments, we have to shut it down. So that's just like every business across America. So if you give me that flexibility, a week or 10 days, I think that would still give us enough time, Bobby. From a legal standpoint, that's a question.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. We don't have to take any action to set the next regularly scheduled meeting, and we'll have plenty of time should we want to call a special.
Thanks, Bobby.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Bobby. That's what I needed, and I apologize, Mr. Johnson, for hijacking your agenda item there to try to get that in. But yeah, that's what we'll shoot for, and then get that information to everybody. So back to Mr. Johnson. Any other questions or comments for them, or Steve, if you have anything else you'd like to add?
The only other comment I wanted to make, and as part of the implementation, we have also been communicating with Kevin Benson, the county property manager, on any other activities that are related to this, like the relocation of the recycling center and some of the early moves that need to take place of some things being relocated to, I'll use the phrase, get out of the way of the other stuff coming. So we've been talking with Kevin, and he's been very cooperative in feeding us up-to-date information on that. So our implementation plan is also trying to include as much as is possibly known about all the moving parts that have to take place to phase in these new projects. Then there's another whole discussion about the budgeting and the financing of it and the sequencing of that. That'll be a big part of these final rounds of conversation. And the selection of the owner's rep is a big, which we always anticipated when we knew we were headed down that path, that the owner's rep would obviously have a big role in helping fine tune and streamline and really coordinate the timeline of the implementation. So I'm very pleased that selection has been made, because that will facilitate us completing this, the implementation chapter of the master plan. And again, my thanks to Mr. Benson for helping us fill in some of the gaps.
This is Stacy Downs, and I just had a quick question. So has it been discussed, will there be a delay in the construction of this project at all? Will any of the COVID affect the money that we have, or we're hoping to put aside for this project over the next year? Where taxes have gone down, nobody's spending any money. Is that gonna make a difference as we move forward, and are we putting that into the plan?
Well, I can start, and of course the mayor can speak to budgeting control. But from my perspective, COVID-19 has a couple different impacts. It does make it, from our perspective, the design could continue, and it could be essentially on the schedule we anticipated. I think we could move ahead fairly aggressively and get projects designed and ready to hit the construction marketplace. Now, the financing is another thing. And what is going to happen to the construction marketplace has two aspects. One is the workforce's ability to build buildings at the same speed, which we're seeing a slowdown in some of that. And then the possibility of timing hitting the market when construction firms are more hungry for business could potentially have some cost savings for the county. Now that involves a crystal ball of figuring out if and when that might happen, but that's a part of that conversation about timing projects to take advantage of that situation. So kind of the positive side of COVID is that construction costs most likely will be coming down as some segments of the marketplace will cool off in building buildings. So those are my initial thoughts. I can't, obviously, the county will control the funding and how fast things can be paid for.
So I guess Steve is finished. It's my turn, right?
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Yes, sir.
Steve had the easy part, I think.
Yeah, yes, I did. The very easy part.
So Stacy, we don't know what the economy is doing totally. We're hearing from the state on some sales tax numbers. Fortunately for the county, sales tax is a very small percentage. Out of our total budget, we might have $5 million in sales tax. What I'm more concerned with are the permitting processes, the buildings, the property tax. Again, the fortunate part about all this, property taxes were due at the end of February, so we have a 96.5% collection rate, and people do have a tendency to pay the property taxes. In our meetings, we're having our full July meeting is where we actually vote on the budget. We did a status quo budget with the entire operation that we have. That includes schools, no adjustments on pay. Everything was flat, and the school board voted on their section of that. It passed unanimously, and it's gone through our budget committee, and that is voted. So all signs are that we're going forward with no tax increase at all for next year and living on budget, with the idea that we can always offer amendments if we need to do that. We've also taken into consideration, I think Steve mentioned it, or maybe I think Steve did, that we are looking at relocating our material handling, what is referred to as our MRF, up on the hillside of the jail. We're going to be relocating that out to another county piece of property that we own. So as Steve indicated, get out of the way building needs to get out of the way, but there are some steps we have to go through with that. The budget also is we are putting in money for the consulting services that we've got. And we still have a lot of work, as Steve is telling you, to do. But at this point, I don't see that we are going to be dragging our feet. We may have to prioritize a little tighter. And we're also prepared to, I like to put big projects like this on the front end of the budget, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather wait till these numbers come in that Steve and Jim now will be massaging to say this is where we need to be, and then we'll just have to do another capital call and take it to market if that's the case at some place down the road. But I really don't see this dragging out unless there's something here in the economy that just causes us havoc at this point in the game. And I'm pretty comfortable with that. But you know, I didn't know COVID was coming around until about March 5th either. Hope we don't have her spiking, because they could make a world of difference.
Well, that's great news. You know, all the work doesn't have to be put off a little bit longer. So
I think most of us. I will share this, and I mean, you're a contractor. You know how it works.
I sure do.
And it's probably been tough on you as anyone else on this committee. That there are certain segments of our county and our country and that have really suffered. Certainly, hospitality, the trucking industry, all of those have a bearing on. I mean, we make a lot of money off diesel and gasoline fuel.
I do know that, yes.
That's why I was kind of directing that at you. So that's off. We're off. But you know, you run the county just like you do a business. And I know Brown struggled with this, Jim struggled with this. We all have, trying to figure out. But out of this will come a better way for us to operate. We'll learn some good, we'll learn some bad, but I'm comfortable that our county will rebound as fast as any county across this state. We've lost, unemployment's up. State of Tennessee's at about 15%. But I think our county will rebound and rebound very strongly. Um, and I'm not an economist, but I'm not a pessimist. I'm a guy that looks at a glass half full, and you know, my job to Steve and to Jim, who are on the payroll, you all figured it out. You need to tell me where I need to be, and if I can't get there, then I'll tell you. And you heard Jim say that we had to go back. We had to go back, and that's running your personal finances. You run your business, and you run the county the same way. So I hope you leave with it's going to get better. It's got to get better as far as processes. But I'm convinced Williamson County will rebound fine. Our sales tax numbers were off about 9.5% in Franklin, but yet they were up 1.5% in Brentwood, and they were up 5 or 6% in Spring Hill. And so those are March numbers. Check back in a couple of weeks when we get the April numbers, and they're going to be flat as a one-sided pancake.
Hey, Brown, this is Jim. Can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
I left out from my report the kind of anecdotal evidence that we're getting from our contractors we work with on other projects and this project and other design firms that we work with, that we don't have any hard facts, that there's other projects that have gone out recently and they've seen pricing come back in better than what they anticipated. But just anecdotally, what we're hearing from the marketplace is that there appears to be some nervousness out there among contractors and therefore subs and suppliers that projects are getting put on hold. Some are getting just completely shelved. And so maybe that would turn into some savings for us, or maybe not, but it's just kind of, as Steve alluded to, it's more of a crystal ball sort of thing. But we'll see when we put the numbers out there how that turns out.
Hey, Brown, this is Rogers. I need to also disclose something that you don't see in the world today, and it's totally 100% volunteer by oversight and what they did with their contract early on in this process. And Jim forgave his fees until later into the process. And I know he doesn't really want me to broadcast that, but in the world we live in today, it's still nice to know that he was able to do that, and you should feel good with who Jim Cross is, and all of you know the Cross family. But for him to step up and to offer to do that is the processes were noted, and it's kind of hard for me to tell Jim and his company, but thank you very much for what you did. He's still going to get paid, but he was willing to delay that, and it speaks very highly of a man's character and the firm's professionalism.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right. Anything else, Mr. Johnson, on your agenda item?
No, that was all of my report.
Great. Any other questions, comments from committee members or stakeholders for Mr. Johnson? Hearing none, we'll move on to, thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll move on to other items, other business, agenda item number 6. Mr. Bobby, would you please draw up a new contract, legal documents for Jim, Jim's business oversight for that new contract that we just approved? And draw that up. That would be great.
Can do, thank you.
Any other business before the committee? We are going to go ahead and schedule a June 23rd meeting date. We're going to keep that on the calendar, and then in the next week to 10 days, we will try to figure out a better way to do that and maybe change it around a little bit. But we'll keep that on the calendar, and then just expect that to change. All right, any other business we need to take care of before we adjourn? All right, hearing none, I will make the motion that we adjourn this meeting, and I'll need a roll call for that vote. Mr. Adams. I'm sorry. Mr. Adams, I'll take that as a second, and his vote. Eric?
Yay, I approve as well.
Right, Mr. Crutcher?
I'll vote to adjourn.
And Ms. Downs?
I approve as well.
Great, thank you so much. We will be adjourned. Thank you, guys. I know this was always difficult to do this electronically, but I think we got a lot done today. And thank you so much for your time and your service. We are adjourned.